Hello and welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Harlock. On today's show, we're going to listen to a podcast created by 12-year-old Jesse Desjarlais. He interviews Earl Pendleton and Joey Goodthunder from the Lower Sioux Indian Community in Minnesota, where the tribe is making their dream of hempcrete houses come true. After we hear Jesse's podcast, I will talk to the young creator about his experience making the podcast. I will then also talk to his dad, Danny Desjarlais, who is the project manager for the Lower Sioux Hempcrete construction project. There is something really special happening out there at the Lower Sioux Indian Community, and it is my great honor to help tell that story. All right, so we'll let Jesse take it from here.
Episode 1 of the JD Experience. Today, this episode is going to be talking about industrial hemp. Today, I'm here with Joey Goodthunder and Earl Pendleton. So, my dad told me, this is for Earl, my dad told me that he calls you his hemp dad. So does that make you my hemp grandpa?
I guess, yeah. If your dad said I'm his hemp dad, then I guess, yeah, you're my hemp grandson.
And for Joey, since you're the hemp bros with my dad, does that make you my hemp uncle?
Yeah, I'll take you.
All right, so we can start off with Earl. So when did you get into hemp and why?
When and why? Good question. I'm running out of memory of when this originally started, but I'm guessing it was around 14 to 15 years ago. I seen, I don't know, maybe just an internet article about the uses of hemp and 20,000 uses for the plant. It's in food, fiber, and applications for bioplastics, which are great, and the perfect nutrient that hemp is, the hemp seed. So obviously those are great things, but I was really taken to the construction materials part of it. I couldn't believe it. It kind of blew my mind that you could make houses out of this, although I learned later on that it wasn't the entire house, but the important part, the insulation and protecting the structure and preserving it for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So, I mean, these are great things. And then you say mold, fire, and pest resistance, and them are obviously the problems as a homeowner that I see. And then you get into the breathable walls and humidity control, temperature control, and they were just continue to blow my mind even to this day that those are things that a plant can do. And it's over the years, it's more evolved into what I think is something natural that technology can't even replicate. So it's obviously an issue here in the community that housing needs is our number one need. And as a tribal council member, then it became more of a goal of mine to get this established here. And it took a lot of years, so I don't want to say I've been 15 years going strong in this, but it kind of came and went as people kind of laughed in my face for the first few years, so I just kind of left it alone. But in the last 4 years, it's really gotten the support from the community leadership, and I've been pushing hard for probably 5 years. But yeah, I've been in this for about 15.
Okay, that's great. Now for you, Joey, when did you get into hemp and why?
I think I got into it when Earl asked me at Christmas one year, "Hey, you want to grow some hemp?" Like, I haven't really heard much about it, but yeah, I'll give it a shot. So that was probably about 5 years ago. He asked me, and then this is my 4th growing year now. And yeah, I just really enjoy the plant, like what it can do. I see the yield bonus that I get from it from the next crop. Just a really good crop, I think.
Okay, that's great. So hemp and industrial hemp are the same thing, correct?
Correct. Industrial applications for hemp is kind of the construction, the bioplastic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a food part of it that hemp is probably not associated with industrial hemp, but yeah, it is the same plant.
So you guys have been working with him for quite some while, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So I heard when you were talking that you said that it's mold proof. So that means that it is waterproof, correct?
Waterproof is probably not the word, but because it accepts moisture, whereas conventional buildings are their number one enemy is to keep moisture out of the building. That's why they
Okay.
have vapor barriers. That's why they have waterproofing. But the ironic part is it can never be kept out. It always finds its way in. So to have a material that accepts moisture and knows what to do with it, can send it throughout the fabric of the walls and increase the humidity levels inside, decrease it when it's dry. That's a material that isn't afraid of moisture. So it's not waterproof. It even uses moisture because thermal inertia and things like, where it needs to add moisture into a room. So it holds that moisture till it needs it. So it never dries out completely. But these are all aspects of practical advantages for hemp. That means, the practical things we see like heating and cooling, it helps there. But there's these idealistic advantages with hemp that, it's better for the planet. It's 100% recyclable. The materials that are in the houses today make up for half of the landfills that we see across. I think we were driving to Kansas. We seen one out in Iowa. It's like a garbage mountain up there. It might be the highest point in Iowa. But we have the same thing in Minneapolis area where, they keep adding more garbage to this planet, and there's nowhere to put it, and it seeps into the ground and it gets into the water, and it affects not just us, but the animals and the plant life that we all need to survive. So this is about a better product for the environment, better product for the planet, but it also is better performing material than what we have now.
So you basically think that hemp is going to save the world, basically?
It's going to have a part of it if we adopt it, industry scale, where we can really be a disruptor to the construction industry right now. But we have to get to that point where you can make modular housing and really be able to build it at a large scale. So right now, there's a one-off kind of world we live in where wealthy people hire a construction crew or a construction company to build them a hemp house. But until we can build them in communities at a larger scale, then it'll always kind of be this little niche industry. But I think we're moving towards that here at Lower Sioux. If we can start building those modular units with the wall panels and the blocks, then we can get to a community scale type of enterprise.
Amazing. So can you so industrial hemp and hempcrete is basically the same thing, right?
Hempcrete is made from the industrial hemp, so right. But there's hemp has its own benefits in hempcrete. Hempcrete is hemp and lime. Lime is obviously not anything to do with hemp, but lime is the mold and fire and pest resistance. Nothing can eat lime. Pests don't like it. They don't want to live in it. Nothing can burn lime. I mean, it can char, but it doesn't burn like the other materials you see.
Yeah.
So, hemp and hempcrete. Hemp is the thermal regulator in the equation. It's the breathable wall. It's the insulation. That it's probably one of the most beneficial parts of the hemp part of the equation. But hemp and lime together, they each have their own benefits to hempcrete.
So you guys recently made a house on the res recently, correct?
Correct. Yes, first one in Minnesota.
And so how long does it take to make the hempcrete, all of the hempcrete that you put into the house?
So I think it's a growing question. I mean, we got to grow it. So I think Joey could probably answer that question.
It takes about 90 days from plant to when we cut it. Then we got about 5 weeks of letting it sit out in the field, and it's called retting. It's basically rotting out in the field. So then you get the nice hard herd that we're looking for to grow. And then from there, we rake it, put it in a round bale, and then we take it up to processing. So really within 130 days, we could be building with it.
Yeah, that's great. So, I heard so industrial hemp is pest proof, correct?
Correct. It's a material that living, anything living, humans, animals, insects, rodents can't eat. So it's something that's not palatable to them. Whereas the other materials in the house that mice can make nests out of, they can't do that with hempcrete. And it deters them from even wanting to live near it. So that's what makes it pest proof, is just the chemical makeup of lime.
All right, great. So, from a scale from 1 to 10, how durable would you say hempcrete would be as a building material?
Hempcrete is a durable material. I think it's kind of a tough question because it's not a structural material. It's just insulation. So it'll replace the things that are hanging on the wall. Stud frame has drywall hanging from it. It has bad insulation hanging from it, OSB. So a lot of things are pulling on that frame, whereas hempcrete will be a part of that frame. It won't be resting and attached to it so much as it'll help with the structure, the load bearing capability of the wall, and it won't take away from that, but on its own it's not structural material. So it is lightweight and not meant to be a standalone wall, but part of a timber frame wall. And then when you encapsulate the wall inside of the hempcrete, it preserves that frame and protects it from rot and moisture that can get in there, and the elements that you normally would see that degrades the frame over time and needs replacement in 40 to 50 years. Hempcrete, if it stays encapsulated, the frame stays encapsulated, can preserve it for hundreds of years. So it's a very durable material, but it does need structure.
All right. So, for making the house, you met up with Cameron McIntosh, correct?
Correct.
And he taught you spraying, correct?
Correct.
All right. So, can you explain to me what's spraying?
Spraying. So I guess Joey was there more for that training, and I'll just say that there's different ways that you can use hempcrete and different techniques to put it into the wall. One is spraying, one is hand packing with the bucket brigade that we did last year. But spraying is a faster application of hempcrete, and it conserves water, and hemp herd is normally we would use a lot more herd and a lot more water. But as far as what the training was all about, I'll let Joey kind of take on that.
So the training, it was a really fun training. What would have taken us about 3 to 4 weeks with hand packing took us only 3 days.
Yeah.
So he just basically taught us how to use this big gun thing, almost and just spray the walls, starting from the bottom, going up to the top. And it was a really, really fun training.
All right. So, continuing with the question, the next question is how do you spray? But because I was on the work site one of the days, and you had a bunch of tools. They had a bunch of cart tool things, a mixer and stuff. Can you explain all the things that does?
Yeah. So we have a mixer guy. We call him the mix master. He will mix the hemp with lime binder, hempcrete, or hemp herd, and water. Mm-hmm. And then he'll mix that up. It'll go onto a table, and then we'll have it slowly raked into the ear-easy, and the ear-easy will shoot it through the tubes, connect to a air compressor, and that's just where it will shoot right on out. from there.
That's amazing. That's great. So this is a really good question. What is your goal with hempcrete? Which Earl kind of already explained, but like, what's your goal with
What
it?
my goal is? My goal is to make as much hemp herd that we need here to build the houses. That's what I'm looking for, and best quality for building. Because without the best quality, we can't really build with it. But yeah, I would love to see hemp in every house out here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's my goal, and I would love to see us use hemp for other stuff, like make a feed mill out of it when it's what is it? Oh, when we're able to use it for animal feed here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my main goal, is to use every part of the plant that we can.
Mm-hmm. Joey, you already explained the next question I was about to ask. So Earl, you might want to take this one. In 5 years, how do you see the reservation with hemp?
That's a tough question. Well, hopefully we keep pushing forward with our learning and understanding of the plant. I think we still have a little ways to go before we really dial in what the next 5 years will look like. But hopefully every year will increase the number of houses we build, the number of acres we plant, our processing capacity. Hopefully will improve. We have equipment that will process 1 ton per hour, which could, 16 to 2,000 acres a year we could process theoretically. I hope to increase that capacity to 5 to 7 tons per hour in the next 5 years, so we can appeal to the surrounding farmers and not just our own land that we farm, but have the surrounding farmers in the area growing hemp and selling us their crop, and increasing our ability to make modular housing. I think is the big key right now, is to get to a point where we can build many different houses at a time, with prefabricated walls and pre-cured blocks. So the techniques we're using now is wet applied, and it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of curation time when you use a wet mix to dry out and to wait before we can get in and finish. So I think if we can get to the point where we're just setting up walls and putting together, tying together wall panels, and within days, and then we can show the other tribes that this blueprint for success that I think every tribe would be able to benefit from eventually. In 5 years, I'd hope we are not the only tribe doing it, which we are now, but there would be tribes throughout this state and throughout the country all benefiting from not just hempcrete and the housing that you get, but the employment, the jobs, and the agricultural side, which we never had control of our own in our own lands over these 90 years of our existence. So Joey is our first farmer, and it's quite an accomplishment to just be in the ag business, as you'd say, but also be using that crop to build something for ourselves and to really control an industry that is brand new. So there's a lot of growing pains involved with doing something that nobody's done, and it's to be expected, but it's also what will make us better at what we do. Is if we have to fail before we really learn how to do anything, you have to figure out every way to fail so you can avoid those pitfalls going forward. So every failure is disappointing, but at the same time it's learning, and it's getting us closer to where we want to be as experts.
Mm-hmm. So in all, how many acres of hemp do you have?
Joey question.
Right now we have 80 acres in hemp. Trying to think of how many acres we actually grown throughout the year. Yeah, around 400 acres we have grown so far.
All right, so
Bales we got.
We have 111 bales.
111 bales. Hopefully this crop will get us another 100 maybe.
I'm hoping another 100.
Right. We have a lot of processing to do.
Yep.
all right. So, how much hemp do you think it would take to make the same house that you've recently made?
Depending on the yield, right? If we get an ideal yield and if the weather conditions are favorable, we could produce enough hemp hurd to make a house with 2 to 4 acres of hemp.
All right. So this continues on with spraying. Like, how long does it take for spraying one wall?
Gosh, I would say it took me about I don't remember this footage and stuff, but I want to say it took me at least 40 minutes to do one wall, and that was a bathroom wall there. So, and it doesn't take long at all.
So how long would it take for all the walls to dry?
For all the walls to dry. What is that again, Earl?
Normally, I don't know about the spray, but because that's new to us, but in a poured cast in place wall, it is about 2 inches per week to dry and cure. So if you have a 12-inch wall, it could take six weeks to fully cure. And that's with ideal and optimal weather.
Well, that's great. Well, we're about to be done here. So I thank you guys for joining with us for this podcast.
Well, Pete, it's my pleasure, and hopefully you'll have us back.
Yeah, I hope so too.
When we move along and build some more houses, I hope we'll come back and visit with you again. Thank you.
All right, well,
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Podcast is over. The JD Experience, episode 1, done.
Jesse Desjarlais from the JD Experience. Welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Cool. Well, welcome to the show. So we just heard the podcast that you made where you interviewed Earl and Joey. So really good job on that. You ask great questions. You have a really strong voice. Why was it important to you to make this podcast?
Well, it was important for me because I think many people should learn stuff that hempcrete and like industrial hemp can do, and like just in general all things that hemp can do.
Absolutely, yeah. How did you like the experience of making a podcast?
It was pretty fun. I think it was a pretty good experience for me.
Yeah. Do you have plans to make more?
Most likely, yeah.
Cool. I get the sense from listening to you that you really like stories and you think they're important, right? And I feel like you know there's a need for people to tell stories and also to listen to these stories. So, yeah, I encourage you to make as many podcasts as you can. I thought you did a really good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So your dad and the hemp crew there are doing something really special, which I'm sure you are really well aware of. On a scale of 1 to 10, how proud are you of what they're doing?
Like 10, basically.
Yeah. What have you learned about hemp by watching them? And are you doing some of the work too? Are you working with the crew?
I'll help them here and there.
Yeah. All right. Well, so your dad is here with us, Danny Desjarlais, and I interviewed him and Earl a few months ago. So, Danny, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Danny, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
You must be
Thanks.
you must be super proud of what your son Jesse is doing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Jesse, how old are you?
I'm 12.
12. Okay. Did you consider interviewing your dad, or you thought you would just go right to Earl and
I was
Joe?
gonna interview my dad was the first person who I was gonna interview, and then stuff happened. So then
I
I'm pretty
told
sure
him, I told him I wanted him to have someone that wasn't just his dad, I guess, on there, so it wouldn't look like, so it wouldn't look like he was just asking his dad questions. And so I got him the Earl of Hemp, and the most experienced hemp farmer that I know. So
Yeah. Joey Goodthunder and Earl
yeah,
Pendleton. Yeah.
yeah.
Who you refer to, Danny, as your hemp dad and your hemp brother.
He's my hemp dad, yeah, and then Joey's the hemp bro. And yeah, and we wanted to actually have Cameron and Naveed on the podcast, but the engineer couldn't figure out how to do it over the phone, and so we could only do people that we had on site. And
Oh,
so
okay. I see.
that was a live interview like in an actual studio.
Oh,
And so
nice. Well,
yeah.
it sounded great and really great, perspective to hear, Jesse asking the questions and yeah. So I love that. So when we spoke a few months ago, you were just sort of about to embark on a larger hemp project there at the Lower Sioux. Can you sort of bring us up to speed as to what's going on there now? Because I think your plans changed a little bit since last I talked to you, right?
Yeah, so we were actually going to build this 4-bedroom single family home that's been the pilot project for a few years that we've been working on, and the contractor that got the bid for the house or for the whole project, because it was this house plus 7 other homes. He was supposed to be done in May, and we were supposed to get started on it then, and he still hasn't started the project anyway. But so we were kind of just standing still, didn't have anything to do. And then May 22nd, I think it was, Earl told me I got the green light for materials for another house. And so then we started looking at options for another house. And at that same time, I was talking to Cameron's wife about purchasing an Easy. And so then Earl was like, well, let's just get that and spray a house. And so then we came up with the idea for this duplex, and it was on a basement that had been in the community for 14 years, just an open space. People's dogs and stuff were falling in, and so they just had like an orange snow fence around it, for like 14 years,
Just a
just
foundation, just
just the
the
foundation, just an ugly,
yeah.
um, an eyesore basically. And then yeah, so we went, looked at that foundation. It was still good. And so June 27th, I think, is the day we actually hired some laborers. And that was the day the materials showed up, because from May 22nd, there was a 4 to 6 week lead time for, like floor trusses and roof trusses. And so all that stuff showed up the same day that we hired the laborers. And we had training scheduled with Cameron, and he could only make it work July 20th. And so this was from June 27th. We had until July 20th to get this house built and ready to be sprayed. And so we ended up doing it. I mean, we were still screwing things into the wall the day Cameron showed up. And so but yeah, we got it done. And so we ended up spraying that duplex. It's just 2 1-bedroom units side by side, basically, and 1,400 square foot, a little over 1,400 square foot total, 12-inch thick walls.
Yeah.
We wrapped it with a smart membrane, the Mento wrap that was Cameron's idea, to kind of like a concept almost. I don't think he had actually done it on a full project on a house, and so we ended up trying it, and it worked perfect. We didn't have to move any farm work or anything. And so, I mean, we knocked it out in 3 days. We
Wow.
left a little piece on the fourth day just to show the public. We had like a public viewing
Yeah.
and kind of a demonstration of the Easy for the public. And so we just left a little piece of wall to show them. But yeah, I mean, we knocked it out in 3 days. And
Yeah.
that was with even, I mean, we blew a hose on the air compressor the first day. Um, we overloaded the machine a few times and chewed up some gears, and so Cameron ended up welding um, some teeth right back onto the gear, and we started back up. I
That's
mean,
cool.
it was
Yeah.
just there was whatever happened, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
We just the
What
project.
size what size crew were you working with?
We had a total, well, if you count Cameron and Naveed, we had a total of, I think, 7 guys,
Okay.
um, maybe 8
Yeah.
once in a while. So
Cool. Now that it's, I can't imagine it's totally finished yet, but it's there. It's a hempcrete structure. What's the community's reaction? How are
So
people reacting?
it's been positive. It's been really positive. I mean, the people that were kind of, the naysayers, I mean, they've all even came around, and so there's really isn't anything negative to say about it anymore. So all the people that had doubted Earl for, the last 15 years, now they're kind of even like, man, we should have been building with him 15 years ago, and
Yeah,
so
that must feel really good for Earl.
yeah,
I
for
know we
sure.
we tried to get him here today, but he's got some stuff going on right
Yeah,
now. But yeah, he must feel so like validated and vindicated or whatever the right word is. But
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. And you've had a lot of like attention now. Like you had some politicians. Was the governor there or there
Yeah,
was?
the governor and lieutenant governor came. There's a big event in the area called Farm Fest, and so they come for that every year. And it was around the same time we finished the house, and so they came, took a tour of the house, and yeah, they loved it. I mean, the lieutenant governor, she wants us to retrofit her house with hempcrete now, and so and then
Nice.
Senator Tina Smith's office had came and she had actually just shared some stuff on Twitter about it today. And then we had the state ag commissioner come, and yeah, there's been a lot of the local people too, like
Right.
the Redwood Chamber of Commerce, the local town close by. They came, and yeah, so just a lot of positive
Right. Right.
feedback from it. So
In Jesse's interview with Earl and Joey, Earl talked about like his vision for hemp, with other tribes and on other reservations. Have you, how, I don't know, what are your thoughts about that?
yeah, I'm all for it, man. I mean, that's my goal. I'd like to go to every tribe in the country and help them get started with hempcrete if they're not already,
Yeah. Yeah.
or point them in the right direction to get started. So,
Right. Right. Because you guys are you're growing it, you're going to process it, and then you're going to build with it. It's like a total like complete circular
yeah,
situation there.
yeah. So we've actually been growing for a while now. I think Earl got started growing even before it was before the hemp bill, the U.S. hemp bill.
Right.
He started growing under
The research program.
contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that yeah, I think he did that for 2 years, and so we've been growing for a while now,
Yeah.
and it's trying to figure out the processing, and
Yep.
we're
Yep.
we're investing into learning how to build with any way we can, and so we're trying to do it all. I guess I think we're biting off a lot, to try
Yeah.
and do it all. I think even if you just did one section, say if you were just focusing on the farming, I think that's already a lot of work. If you're just focusing on the processing, that's a ton of work. And the building's a bunch of work too. So, and
Yeah.
we're trying to do it all at once. And so, yeah, it's quite a bit to do.
Yeah. It's really just super inspiring, and
Yeah.
it's been great to see what you're doing. So you mentioned Cameron McIntosh, and I was in Montana last month at the Montana Summer Hemp Summit, and Cameron arrived there just fresh from Minnesota after working with you guys for a few days, and he was super energized. And you know what? He's on the line here. Cameron, can you talk to us about your experience there working with the guys at the Lower Sioux?
Hey, Eric, Danny, Jesse, pleasure to be on with you guys. I am still at a loss for words that accurately encompass what we experienced there, what these guys did, how impressive the entire tribe is really, and Eric, quick break. I want you to get Jesse to talk about the education that the young kids get at the tribe there about their history and their language and things like that. I mean, that was probably, I met Danny first and Jesse shortly thereafter, and talking with the two of them and Earl. I mean, the first night you guys Earl and Danny and Jesse gave me some of the backstory to the Lower Sioux tribe and their existence there in Minnesota, and how the reservation came to be, how it is continued to be for them. We tend to think of the interactions between the United States government and the tribes as something that happened in the past. And to go and experience what's happening on the reservation, and to hear from them that a lot of these things that you would think would never happen in the 21st century are still happening. And the way that this tribe in particular has responded to the world around them is just, I mean, that alone was a humbling thing to experience and be a part of. And a lot of it, I'll be honest, was downright infuriating to hear. But there is no negativity in Earl's voice and in Danny's voice, and in their passion. There is no ill will or anything. These guys have an eye firmly on the future. They've identified hemp as, a part of the future of their tribe that has the potential to, I won't say heal, because some wounds are impossible to heal, but to certainly treat and to kind of soothe some of the wounds of the past. With this plant and what they're doing, and tying that into, the experience I had. I showed up, late in the day, met all the guys. They fed us. We did a brief version of our training, because we had 3-4 days on the ground to actually be spraying, which is more important in terms of training. But in a beautiful rec center, I guess, would you call it, Danny? What's the center there?
Yeah, it was just a rec center. Now they attached the incubator, and yeah, we call it the incubator now.
And it's a cultural center too, right? I mean, there's a collection there of Lower Sioux culture that I wasn't expecting to see, right?
Yeah, it's in everything. So I mean, they have pottery over there. You can make pottery. They have a room for you can do beadwork, quill work, make big star quilts. They have a music studio over there, like a professional music studio with all top of the line everything, and yeah, it's really cool, all the stuff they offer for the kids. And so that's how Jesse even got to do the podcast. Was he does from 12 to 15-year-olds, they do a youth work program, and so he got to be in this youth work program. And throughout it, they don't just make them work, they only make them do like actual work for 2 hours out of the day, and then the rest of the time they're learning Dakota language, and they're working on like arts and stuff. And so his podcast was part of the arts program, and they had to do a art project, and so they either had to make their own song or they had to host a podcast. And so he chose to do a podcast, and then he picked it to be about industrial hemp, and so that's how the podcast came about. And
Yeah, so great, so great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we showed up, and one of the things I learned very quickly was how small the reservation really is. And again, this is maybe a subject for another day, but the history as to why it is the shape it is and the size it is it took the wind right out of me. And then after all that, they walked me over to the site, which is 2 minutes walking from where we did the training, and explained to me that it had been a foundation in the ground for 14 years, a scar on the reservation for 14 years. And that, Earl dropped this bomb on me, which is that, to their knowledge, this is the first time that a crew comprised of Lower Sioux tribe members has actually built one of the houses on the reservation. Now, I'm sure historically, Obviously, at certain points, they probably did do some of their infrastructure, but in recent memory, all of their infrastructure projects, their building, their golf course, their casino, their houses, all of that was subcontracted out. That was external labor, external contractors. So, and as you can imagine, that money is being siphoned out of their community, right? So super powerful to understand the gravity of, number one, this hole in the ground becoming a house in less than 2 weeks. The fact that it was built by Lower Sioux tribe members, and that they sort of rallied and encouraged each other, mentally and physically, to get a house put together in that amount of time, is special, not only to hempcrete, but in contracting and building in general. If anyone's ever been a part of a building project, how ridiculous that is to go from a concrete foundation to a dried in structure, which means there's a roof on it. The smart membrane was pre-installed. This thing was literally, to put this in perspective for people that are listening, usually I show up to a job site and there's anywhere from half a day to a full day worth of odds and ends, things that haven't been done yet that we need to do before we can start spraying. I think we spent about an hour and a half the morning that I got there putting in some electrical boxes that needed to be placed. And we were spraying by, I think, 11 a.m. that morning, which is like, land speed record for Easy for sure. But it just in general, I mean, the layers to this project, I mean, it's hard to talk about, to be honest. And I almost feel like an imposter talking about it because of how special and how important this is for the tribe. And to have been a part of it, I mean, understand as well that in Earl's journey over the last 12 years, he has talked to a lot of people in the hemp and hempcrete industry. Many of my friends and colleagues have at one point or another, had conversations with Earl and Danny. So they were not walking into the process and the Easy system as newcomers. They really had taken the time to do their homework, and this is tribal politics. This is how it works. Danny can't do anything without 3 of the 5 signatures from the tribal council on what he's doing. So you have to understand that what Danny and Earl were able to do is so impressive, because there's layers to the way that the tribe works and how they release funding for their infrastructure projects, that it's a business. They are a large business, and they have revenue obviously from things like the casino and the golf course, but the extent and the hoops that Danny had to jump through just as a project manager on this are impressive. And with all of that they were able to do it in 2 weeks and get it ready to spray. I mean, by the time we sprayed it and it was done and we had that open house day, it had fully registered with me how impactful and important this project was for the tribe, for Danny, for Earl, for the young kids, Jesse, but just in general, it was, hempcrete and the Easy seemed to not be the quote unquote star of the show. Like there were so many other awesome layers to what was happening there that, leaving hemp and hempcrete out of it, it was still an incredible accomplishment and something that, had not happened in recent knowledge on the reservation. So even if you strip away what we think is the coolest part, it was still pretty cool. So yeah, I'll shut up now, but Danny's smiling at me, but it is difficult for me to talk about. And, I, shortly after the project was done, Danny made a great post about it. My friend Naveed, who came and helped us, who I've worked with, multiple times, good friend of mine, made a post about it. It got shared all over the place. There's a TV personality that lives on the res that shared it. They had the governor show up. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I almost don't want to take any credit for anything that happened there because of how important everything is that happened, and that it's such a small. It's a humbling experience for me. It's such a small portion of how cool this whole project was, the Easy system. But yeah, I'm just so incredibly proud of these guys and so excited for what they're going to do next. And the publicity that they've gotten from it is well deserved. And they really, people have to understand they're not doing this like I am as a business, to make money and to sell, equipment and materials. They are doing this to create much needed housing on a reservation that has not seen a project like this ever. In many ways, many levels, they've not seen a project like this, even leaving hemp out of it.
Right. That's
So,
amazing.
again, it's difficult for me to talk about, and I almost, I haven't made a public post or anything about it yet because of the feeling that I have around it. And Eric, you nailed it. I mean, I was like, usually when I come off these projects, there's a little adrenaline rush, but I mean, this was like an emotional and physical rush coming off of this one, which, Naveed and I have been on some really big, really notable hempcrete projects. And we both agreed that this is the top for us. This is the top experience for us by a long margin. So anyway, I'll shut up now.
Yeah. So Danny, can you fast forward a few years? What does the reservation look like housing wise in a few years?
Yeah, well, this year still, we're still going to try and do a couple more projects. And so we're going to do a tiny house out of hempcrete panels. And that'll be like our proof of concept build. And then if people say, hey, I want a tiny house, then we'll be able to make these panels all winter, and so we can keep busy. And then, next year we pop out as many of these as we can, and then the year after as many more as we can. And yeah, just keep it going, I guess. But I mean, if people still want the single family homes, we could do that too,
Right.
So
that's great. So, talk about your weather that you're experiencing right now. Is it hot there these days?
yeah, so today it's supposed to be a heat index of 110 to 115. We started at 7 o'clock this morning, and yeah, it's been brutal all day. It's only gotten worse. So.
Right. And then on the other extreme, in the winter, you go pretty cold, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's times where with the wind chill, it gets down to 40, 50 below, so it's, and that'll be for a few days at a time. It's not just for, a little bit. We get a long period of, and so.
So I'm really just curious to, see how these hempcrete homes, what am I trying to say here? How they're, I'm going to edit out my dumb talking, but
performance.
Yeah. The performance of the hempcrete houses in these extremes, I think, is going to be just a really good sort of not just test, but an example for people to see, right?
Yeah, definitely. With the, I don't know how exactly we'll compare it to the houses close to it, but we are trying to build a comparative build this year yet with some other houses that just got built on the res. And so we're going to try and build one right next to it at the same spec, but using hempcrete, and then try and get all the testings done that we can. I think I talked to you a little bit about that on our last podcast. And so we're still trying to do that. It's just, it hasn't happened yet. So
well, you've been busy.
And that'll show us a lot, I think that'll be some really good information.
Cool. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And Jesse, thank you for making your podcast and for letting us share it with our audience too. I'm just really proud of what you're doing. I mean, I think this is the most important story in hemp, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And hearing you all talk about this, I wrote down a phrase that I used to bring up a lot, but cannabis loves community and hemp brings healing, right?
Yeah.
So there's some,
definitely.
yeah. So, Anyway, I'll let you guys get back to your work and the heat index of 115.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna add to that too, and it's not just about the tribes getting started. It's about everybody. Like you say, cannabis is for it's for everyone. It's not for you
yeah,
know,
abs-
it loves everyone, I guess you could say.
Hey,
absolutely.
Eric,
Yes, sir.
I want to prompt Danny on a couple things.
Sure.
So one of the other really incredible, or I would say actually one of the most important aspects, I think, for the public to understand about this project in particular, this sort of flagship for Lower Sioux, is that if we haven't touched on this and made it clear yet, this is emergency housing that will be maintained by the tribe. Okay, so they will be putting families in crisis into this building, and it's a duplex, right? So there is only, to my knowledge, one other project happening in the country that can even qualify as a multifamily unit, and it's our EREZ owner operators in Massachusetts who are doing the tilt-up wall panels. So as you can imagine, on the reservation, they have the freedom to do as they please, and that doesn't mean that they're doing and building outside of or ignoring building code. But when it comes to the finer points of using a material that we all know good and well is absolutely, highest quality when it comes to health and human safety, in the non-tribal world, we have to have approval to do projects from building code enforcement, and it would very likely have been difficult to get a project like this approved. But what I think I really want to impress, and the question that I'm going to, ask Danny to elaborate on here, is that, and what makes this project very special to me is that this is a real world example of how this community has chosen to incorporate a material that by and large in this country has been reserved for people who have the means financially to employ it, right? Now, that's not to say that, my clients have been ultra wealthy or any different really from you and me, Eric, but they do have the means and the money to do it, whether it's because they're a capable, motivated homeowner builder, or they understand the energy savings and that, yes, they're putting money down up front that will return to them. We have seen very few, if any, examples beyond concept of the potential for hemp and hempcrete to be utilized in a structure that is for emergency housing or low income housing, if you will. So, what some of your listeners and certainly many people in the hempcrete community are going to be absolutely shocked to find out is that they're going to use vinyl siding on the outside of this house. And it was designed to be able to do that. And what people have to understand is that, yes, exterior lime plaster is most commonly what's used for hempcrete. But you don't have to use exterior lime plaster. You can employ what we did on this project, which is a ventilated rain screen. We're keeping an air gap in between the surface of the wall and the siding to allow for any moisture vapor to travel out, which means that these guys can use whatever makes the most sense economically for the tribe in building emergency housing. And if that means using vinyl siding, then they are able to still use hempcrete and still use materials that make sense financially. So although it will be shocking and appalling to many of the hemp faithful, this house is going to have vinyl siding, and it's a, excuse my language, but it's a no bullshit hempcrete build. Okay, this is not for a high end, customer who's keen to take credit for their, their ecological and sustainable prowess, whatever you want to say. This is going to be for families in crisis. And so, Danny, what I wanted you to mention and talk about a little bit is, as a project manager on this project, what can you say now? Obviously, the house isn't done yet, but what can you say now about how you think the costs are stacking up for doing this house?
Yeah, I actually talked to Eric a little bit about that yesterday, about how just basically the cost and everything was going to be. I mean, I'm thinking it's going to be around the same price. The The one thing though about being the project manager and trying to do it, I guess, when I bring up the vinyl siding, Earl's kind of been big on wants to use all natural building materials, but it gets expensive and nobody in this area knows how to do lime plastering. And even like the surrounding houses, nobody really would want their exterior to be lime plaster. Everybody in the area has vinyl siding. And so we are doing another house with lime plaster. And so the reason we did it this way is because it's an emergency house where it's going to be temporary 6 months at a time to live in. People that just need a place to stay, basically. And so we didn't really see a point in using expensive materials. And we're trying to build houses for people, for anybody, not just for the millionaires, I guess, is what I kind of talked to Eric about too yesterday, and said that's what this build is going to be. It's for anybody that wants a house. It's not for the. I mean, we could build $1 million house too, if that's what you want, but nobody on our reservation can afford a house like that. And so this is the most economical way of doing it. We're using the hempcrete as our wall insulation, and that's what it is. And so
you get the benefits of hempcrete.
We're still getting all the benefits of hempcrete, exactly. Yeah. And so
and when you say that it's relatively the same cost, you mean as compared to hiring an outside contractor to come and build a stick frame, vinyl sided, insulated home?
No,
right?
if we would have hired a contractor to come build that, we would have probably spent an extra $50,000 or $60,000. And so yeah, we saved. Everyone we talked to said that house would come in around 250, possibly high twos, and we're still under 160 is about what we're at right now, and that's with paying the plumber $60,000 and the electrician $20,000. So that's half of our costs right there. The rest, the other 80 has been all materials. That's including the binder, that's including the herd, that's including labor, that's including everything, and we're at 160,000 right now. The way the house sits, that's with the siding on it, that's roofed, that's doors, windows. The only thing we have left to buy is the flooring and the toilet and the vanity for the bathroom. So I mean, really, it's going to be under 200,000 for sure. And yeah, if we would have hired anyone, it probably would have came in closer to 300. Because it's the duplex, and then you have the double units for all of the plumbing and everything, I guess,
So I think people have heard me mention it before, Eric, and it's something that Damien, the guy that created Damien Bomber, that created the Earl system, has said before, is that this spray application method is aimed at the democratization of hempcrete, right? And we often get criticized for the fact that we're importing binder. Yes, the binder for the Earl system is proprietary to the Earl system. It is literally what makes it go. And it is imported from France. We are obviously working on domesticating that, but it's important for people to understand here that when we say we're talking about the democratization of hempcrete, it's not a marketing term. Okay, it's real world, rubber meets the road. If anyone listening has actually priced out or has done a hempcrete build, you will understand, and that's doing a hempcrete build by hand. You quickly understand. Danny and Earl, they've done cast and place hempcrete. They did a shed, they did some demonstration walls. Everyone in the tribe that was skeptical saw that and thought, wow, that's a lot of work. That looks like a lot of work. And those same people came back after everybody knew that we were there. Everybody knew that Naveed and I were there. They knew that these guys had been working crazy hours getting this thing thrown up in 2 weeks. It's the talk of the reservation, right? And those that knew and saw the work that they had done by hand casting, albeit with more local and cheaper materials, everybody noticed and understood when they saw how quickly we sprayed that house, why it was important to have a mechanized installation method like the E-Reezy. And on the other side of that, understanding that, even though the binder was imported, it could have been close to twice the cost, and it still would have been faster to do the E-Reezy. It could have been twice the cost for the binder, and it would have, the project would have been about the same price had they done it by hand because of.
Oh, right. I see. Yep.
Just for labor alone, we're just with my crew, with all of our guys. That's not including if Naveed and Cameron are on the crew, but we pay around $5,000 a week, roughly, in labor, and that house would have taken us probably 4 weeks to cast in place, and so that's extra 20,000 we would have spent just in labor.
Because you got it done in like 4 days.
We got it done in 3 days, and we did spray on that 4th day, but it was just to do a demonstration. And so, yeah, I mean, we saved just right there, and that's just rough numbers. That's just looking at my piece of paper here on the wall. And so
yeah. Are you sourcing the herd internationally, or are you getting that?
So no, so we got that from Minnesota. We are growing our own. It's just been the processing that we haven't figured out. I mean, we have processed some in the past, and we've built with herd that we've processed, but the way we process and the equipment we have has just been, it takes too long, and so it's not feasible to do it with that equipment, and so we're trying to get a new setup going, and so hopefully we'll be able to use our own herd on all of these builds. But we source this from local here in Minnesota, and we got a really good deal on it. And so that's how we were also able to keep the price down so much,
Right.
And so.
Cool. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you for sharing all of this. Cameron, thanks for jumping in and asking questions. I appreciate that. And Jesse, you still there? Nope. I think he left. All right. Well.
Yeah, I'm here.
There
it wouldn't unmute.
Okay. Well, anyway, you guys, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much. And really proud of what you're doing, and good luck to everything in the future.
Yeah, you got to get out here.
I'd like to get out there. Maybe next summer I'll be out there. So, is there anything else that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about?
We can't leave out the star of the show, the Dominique Wilkins of Hemp, Naveed, for coming through and killing it on the project too. So, I mean, I know we mentioned his name a few times, but I just wanted
Naveed was a late addition, but Naveed helped me with my last training too, Eric. He came down, and having Naveed on the mixer, which is what he normally does for me, was awesome, because then I literally stood behind the person spraying the entire time. Whoever it was, I was right there, the entire time, and I got to hold their hands literally and figuratively in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do without Naveed.
I got some pictures of Cameron getting his Patrick Swayze on with the guys, holding them from behind,
put one arm around one arm around their belly and one holding the lance, and just a little.
I'll send you a couple
cha-cha.
of those too. Yeah, and so the one thing too to mention about Naveed is he actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, I heard Cameron's coming there to do a project. I'd be willing to come," and basically he said, "I'll come, help out on the project and pay for his own everything." We're like, "Well, we'll get you a room, we'll get you food." And seeing him work, it definitely set the pace. It showed the guys, this is how a project's supposed to go. It was really magical to see how these two work on the job. So it was cool.
That's awesome. All right. Well, yeah, we could talk about this all day.
We did build that house with no power, no water. There was no electrician, no plumber, no blueprints, no elevations, no floor plans, no
problem.
Yeah, exactly. There was even a lot of pushback, kind of, they kind of wanted us, maybe let's do some demonstration walls, maybe you guys can't do this house. And so, we got some nice demonstration walls put up. So that's.
Yeah, there was a moment there leading up to it. And in the weeks, leading up to it, I was on the phone with Danny quite a bit. And the whole time, I knew good and well what kind of stress and pressure he was under, but cool as a cucumber the whole time. And there was a point where there was a golf tournament and a couple of the guys were away for a weekend. And that's the point where council was kind of saying to Danny, are you crazy? Are you guys actually going to be able to do this? And he said, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Definitively, he said, we are doing it.
Yeah.
And they did it, and so just again, the layers. I mean, it's a pretty common experience for me to show up to the job site and everybody's been working weekends and long hours preparing for me to come, and then the machine turns on and the intensity level doubles again. So I knew these guys were tired. I knew that they had been, putting in this heroic effort. And then, 3 days of just super intense work to get it done, and to prove the concept finally for the tribe and for Earl. I mean, it's just, it's the stuff of legends, really. So anyway, I'm humbled. And this is, hands down, probably Naveed and I's favorite project that we've been on. And that's saying a lot if you know about the projects that Naveed and I have been on together with Hempstone and my company, collaborating. So Naveed's in Massachusetts, good friend of mine and now of Danny and the tribes too. So can't say enough about that was another special layer too, because Naveed has probably the biggest heart of anybody I've ever met. So it was not lost on him either. And Naveed and I really did come back different. So just a really powerful, moving experience around this emergency duplex in Minnesota, that we've affectionately dubbed the raft, because it's a life raft for a lot of different reasons. So the raft exists, man, and there'll be people in it by December, right, Danny?
Yeah, for sure, by December.
So yeah, super powerful. But anyway, all right, cut it, Eric. Cut it,
all right, well, I'm going to use all of that too, so that was great.
Yeah, and the kids on the youth work program, they actually helped us weigh up all the bags, because we had it in giant, grain sacks, the big super sacks, and so we had to weigh it up to, into batches for the ear easy. And so the kids actually helped us weigh it all up. It was cool. I got pictures of that too, of all the big piles of herd laying there with the kids with their shovels scooping it into garbage bags.
Yeah.
A real team effort.
It was a full team effort. The whole community
came together. Too.
That's great. Well, when you see Earl, tell him I said congratulations and hello. All right. Well, for real. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right. Later.
Later, Danny. Later, Jesse. See you, dude.
Later.
Bye.
All right. There you go. The hemp houses of the Lower Sioux. Such an inspiration, and none of it would be happening without the leadership and vision of Earl Pendleton. So hats off to you, Earl, and the whole crew at the Lower Sioux. I have deep respect for you all. Thank you for listening to today's show. My name is Eric Herlock. I'm the digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. If you have questions for me or comments or concerns, you can always send an email to podcast@lancasterfarming.com. Yeah, and I look forward to hearing from you. And I will point out that Cameron during the interview mentioned the history of the tribe, the frustrating, heartbreaking history. Earl talked a bit about that in my interview with him back in April. So you should go back and listen to that, because it's really important to know what this tribe has been through and how, like Cameron said, they're just facing the future. So anyway, thanks again for listening. Until next time, I'll see you in the newspaper.
Industrial hemp.
Season 3, Episode 31 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2023 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Harlock. The music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tinbird Shadow. Special thanks to Jesse Desjarlais at the JD Experience for letting us replay Episode 1 of his show.